Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I'll analyze the case of Dana Clair Edwards and John Thomas Ford. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Dana Clair Edwards was born on June 30, 1976, and raised in Alamo Heights, Texas. This small town is 6 miles north of San Antonio. Dana lived with her parents, Daryl and Deborah Edwards. After graduating from high school, Dana went on to college and medical school. She ended up dropping out of medical school after injuring her back in a motor vehicle collision. Dana moved back to Alamo Heights and worked for her family's construction company. She lived in a condominium complex called Gallery Court. In 2006, Dana met a man named John Thomas Ford, and eventually they became romantically involved. John went by his middle name, Thomas. He was about 8 years older than Dana. Just like Dana, Thomas's family members owned a construction company, which he worked for. By the summer of 2008, the couple was experiencing difficulties in their romantic relationship. Dana wanted to get married and have children, but Thomas planned on going back to college to get a teaching certificate. In September 2008, Dana ended the romantic relationship. Thomas did not take the breakup too well. He wrote a letter to Dana. Thomas said that he was deeply saddened, hurt, and disappointed by the sudden termination of their relationship. He could not sleep because he was crying over the tremendous loss and loneliness. He could hardly make it through the day without his emotions taking over. He asked Dana to reconsider and wrote, quote, "There is too much time, money, and effort invested in this relationship to simply up and quit. You are the person I want to spend the rest of my life with and raise a family with," unquote. Despite the letter, Dana did not change her mind. Even though the relationship was over, the pair remained friends and would occasionally cross paths in Alamo Heights. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Stamps.com. Remaining flexible in your workday is one of the keys to success. For instance, focusing on the important parts of the business that only you can do. With Stamps.com, tedious tasks like sending certified mail, invoices, checks, documents, and packages can be done on your time, not someone else's. Stamps.com simplifies your postage needs and adds valuable flexibility back into your workday. Stamps.com handles all your mailing and shipping needs whenever, wherever. Seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart if you sell products online. Access all the USPS and UPS services you need to run your business right from your computer or phone, anytime, day or night, no lines, no traffic, and no waiting. Have more flexibility in your life with Stamps.com. Sign up at Stamps.com/Dr. Grande for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com/Dr. Grande. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 31, 2008, Dana and Thomas attended a New Year's Eve party at the residence of a woman named Mary Minor. Even though they were both at the party, they were not together as a couple. At about 11:30 p.m., Thomas left the party. At around 12:45 a.m., now on January 1, 2009, Dana left the party and returned to her condominium. Dana's parents expected her to visit their ranch on New Year's Day. The ranch was in Fredericksburg, about 70 miles north of Alamo Heights. Dana failed to show up. Her parents called her several times, but she did not answer. Concerned about her well-being, they visited Dana's condominium early on January 2, where they found her dead on the floor. The police were contacted. They arrived at 2:30 a.m. Here is what they found during the course of their investigation. Dana's body was on the floor halfway in a bathroom. A white towel was draped over her face. Dana's cause of death was asphyxiation due to ligature strangulation. There was no sign of forced entry into the condominium. Dana's 2 dogs, Grit and Toby, were not there, but nothing else was missing. The police spoke to Thomas later that same day. He said that after he left the party at the residence of Mary Minor, he drove home and arrived there in less than 5 minutes. He changed, went to bed, and was asleep before midnight. His phone was in his possession the entire night. Thomas indicated that nobody other than him drove his Chevrolet Tahoe. Dana and Thomas were friends with a man named Alan Tarver and his girlfriend, Melissa Fetterspill. Alan and Melissa were also at the party at the residence of Mary Minor, so the police spoke to them. The couple said that the partygoers were playing a game called Apples to Apples, when the topic of marriage came up. Melissa kind of joked with Thomas and Alan about this topic. Later, Thomas told Melissa that her commentary irritated him. Right after Thomas left the party, Melissa's boyfriend Alan sent a text message to Thomas asking why he left. Thomas responded, "No longer fun." Alan sent another text message asking whether Thomas was going to return to another party where they had been earlier. Thomas did not respond to this message. After leaving the party, Melissa and Alan stopped by Thomas's house to drop off a cooler of beer, but they didn't see his white Chevrolet Tahoe at the end of his driveway or in the church parking lot behind his house. These are the two places where he normally would have parked. Believing that Thomas was not home, the couple decided not to approach the house. At 1:19 a.m., when Alan was home, he sent a text message to Thomas indicating that he had his beer and he would talk to him tomorrow. This story, supplied by Alan and Melissa, made it seem like Thomas was not home on New Year's Eve when he said he was. If he had been there, they would have probably spotted his Chevrolet Tahoe. The police found video from a camera on a bank across the street from the Gallery Court condominium complex where Dana lived. The camera captured a white SUV, similar to Thomas's Chevrolet Tahoe, entering the complex at 11:27 p.m. and exiting at 11:30 p.m. 12 minutes later, at 11:42 p.m., a mysterious figure could be seen on foot entering the complex. At 12:47 a.m., now on New Year's Day, Dana's red Chevrolet Tahoe entered Gallery Court. This was her arriving home from the party. So both Thomas and Dana owned a Chevrolet Tahoe. Again, the one that Thomas had was white, and the one that Dana had was red. A neighbor said that he saw Dana walking her two dogs at 1:20 a.m. At 2:02 a.m., a mysterious figure was captured walking out of Gallery Court. At 2:07 a.m., a white SUV could be seen driving south. At 3:12 a.m., the SUV returned and pulled into Gallery Court. It exited at 3:16 a.m. The police believe that the white SUV was the Chevrolet Tahoe, which belonged to Thomas. There were similarities, like both had black trim, black door handles, black mirrors, and did not have a luggage rack. The police obtained cell phone data from Thomas's phone without a warrant. His phone connected to a tower near Gallery Court at 11:45 p.m. and again at 1:19 a.m. At 1:32 a.m., the phone connected to a tower near a dam called Almost Dam. On January 7, the body of Dana's dog Grit was found at that dam. Her other dog, Toby, was never found. Based on these findings, the police believed that Thomas was guilty, but they did not arrest him. Later, DNA from the white towel, which was on Dana's face, was found to be consistent with Thomas's DNA. In 2010, Thomas was arrested and charged with murder. He went to trial in February 2012. On February 24, John Thomas Ford was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. He will be in his 80s before he is eligible to be released. Now moving to my analysis. John Thomas Ford maintains his innocence, and he has quite a few supporters. The jury struggled to come to a verdict in this case, and as part of an unsuccessful appeal, one judge wrote a dissenting opinion saying that Thomas should get a new trial. The cell phone data should not have been admitted because they were collected without a warrant. The state, of course, disagrees. They believe Thomas was the killer. This brings me to the question, was Thomas guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Just 3 months before her death, Dana broke up with Thomas. He was devastated by this and wanted to reconcile. Dana was murdered in her condominium, but there was no forced entry. Her dogs were missing, but nothing else was. If this was a burglary gone bad, why were no valuables taken? Allegedly, Thomas had been irritated by a joke at a party a few hours earlier. Thomas's DNA was on the white towel, which was covering Dana's face. Cell phone data indicated that Thomas's phone was active when he said he was asleep. Furthermore, it pinged a tower near Dana's condominium and a tower near the dam where her dog was found dead. A white SUV and a mysterious figure on foot could be seen entering and exiting Gallery Court. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Thomas and Dana interacted many times after Thomas was romantically rejected. For example, in October 2008, Dana attended Thomas's birthday party and a Halloween party. On December 20, not even 2 weeks before the murder, they spent time with friends in a limousine viewing Christmas lights. On December 23, Dana visited Thomas's house to pick up a Christmas present. She later told her friend Melissa that she spent 5 hours there because she was so emotional. When looking at the history of interactions Thomas had with various people, he did not really seem like he had an anger problem. People described him as peaceful, pragmatic, and non-confrontational. It seems strange that somebody without an anger problem would have murdered someone based on being insulted during a card game hours earlier. Dana was not even the one who offended him. Why would he kill her based on that? The white SUV captured on video surveillance may have belonged to Thomas, but there's no way to know for certain. There were a lot of white SUVs in the area that night. As a matter of fact, between 11:20 p.m. on New Year's Eve and 3:16 a.m. on New Year's Day, 17 white SUVs were captured by the same surveillance camera that supposedly captured the one belonging to Thomas. As far as the mysterious figure seen entering Dana's condominium complex on foot, that could have been anybody. When the unidentified person left Gallery Court at 2:02 a.m., a light could be seen from what appeared to be a mobile device, but there was no activity on Thomas's phone at this time. Definitively identifying the location of a cell phone based on tower pinging is impossible. The state's expert witness conceded this on the stand. A cell phone can use any tower within about 20 miles, and the selection is based on numerous network traffic variables, not always based on distance. For example, from Thomas's house, his phone could connect to the tower near Dana's condominium. All the points of interest in this case, like the location of the party, Thomas's house, Dana's condominium, and the dam, were only a few miles apart. If one were to rely on cell phone data to construct the timeline, as the state did, another problem comes up. The mysterious figure, who, again, was supposedly Thomas, did not leave Gallery Court until 2:02 a.m., yet Thomas's phone pinged a tower near the dam at 1:32 a.m. How did Thomas get to the dam if he never left Dana's condominium complex? The state introduced a fantastical theory to explain how this was possible. They argued that Thomas, who weighed 250 pounds, climbed over an 8-foot wall surrounding Gallery Court with a Jack Russell Terrier in his possession. He then covered 2.33 miles to get to the dam in just 13 minutes. That distance is based on a straight line, which would be impossible because Thomas would have to climb over fences around people's backyards. Using roads, the distance is 2.7 miles. This means that Thomas maintained an average speed of 12.46 miles per hour. This was done on foot. The state conceded Thomas did not use his vehicle for this trip. After disposing of the dog, Thomas returned to Gallery Court and made his way back over the wall. As far as Thomas's DNA being on the towel, he spent time in Dana's condominium. He had been there not long before the murder. He was helping her clean during that time. It makes sense that he might have touched a towel. Furthermore, that towel had been left at the crime scene for a week. Alan and Melissa said they did not see the Chevrolet Tahoe at Thomas's house, but on the stand, they conceded it may have actually been there. They did not look at the entire church parking lot where he sometimes parked. They could only see part of the lot. The investigation into Dana's murder was poorly managed. The police lost her underwear, her fingernail clippings, and video from another surveillance camera. Initially, investigators believed that Dana died accidentally, when clearly she did not. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that John Thomas Ford was guilty of murder? I believe he was guilty in reality, but I am not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Dana broke up with Thomas because they had different goals. She also appeared to have difficulty regulating her intake of alcohol, which made her life a bit chaotic. Thomas wanted to reconcile, but he was also concerned about Dana's drinking. During the early morning hours of New Year's Day, 2009, Thomas murdered Dana after some type of argument. Maybe this argument was about her drinking because she had consumed alcohol at the party. There was no credible evidence pointing toward Thomas, but the state assumed he was guilty because Dana had broken up with him. The state overinvested in the cell phone data and constructed a timeline that did not make any sense. There is no way that Thomas scaled an 8-foot wall, ran for 13 minutes straight, at over 12 miles per hour, ran back, and climbed over the wall again. It simply did not happen. A more likely explanation is that he disposed of the dog using his vehicle after he committed the murder. I think the bottom line in this case is that the state had no idea how Thomas committed the murder. They pieced together inconclusive video, easily explained DNA evidence, and unreliable cell phone data, and then made the behavior of Thomas fit these data. If that meant transforming him into an Olympic athlete, the state was fine with that. Whether he was guilty or not, Thomas could have avoided a conviction by not talking to the police and not leaving his cell phone on. As far as a possible lesson here, I guess one could say that card games can be more dangerous than expected. Under the right circumstances, a game of apples to apples can transform into a real-life game of Clue. Those are my thoughts on the case of Dana Clair Edwards and John Thomas Ford. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.